Chapter 3: The Psychological Toll. How manipulation breaks down the victim. After identifying manipulation tactics in the previous chapter, we now turn our focus to the devastating psychological effects of manipulation and gaslighting. These tactics are not just about control. They're designed to dismantle a person's sense of self, causing long-term emotional and mental damage. The insidious nature of manipulation means that its effects are often subtle at first, creeping into every facet of a person's life, until they are left questioning their reality. In this chapter, we will explore the psychological toll of manipulation, how it gradually erodes self-trust, and most importantly, how victims can begin to heal and rebuild their sense of self. The slow erosion of self-trust. Manipulation doesn't happen overnight. It is a slow, consistent process designed to gradually chip away at the victim's confidence. What often begins as small, seemingly insignificant manipulations over time can snowball into a profound breakdown of self-trust. Manipulators know that if they can get their target to doubt their own thoughts, feelings, and memories, they can maintain control. Victims of manipulation typically don't realize they are being manipulated until the damage has already been done. The process is so gradual that it becomes nearly invisible to the victim, and by the time they notice, their perception of reality has been so altered that it becomes difficult to distinguish between truth and distortion. Example: Rachel was once an independent, confident woman before meeting Mark. Initially, their relationship was loving and supportive, but over time, Mark started dismissing her feelings, subtly correcting her memory of past events, and convincing her that she was being overly sensitive. At first, Rachel tried to brush it off, but after years of manipulation, she found herself questioning even the simplest decisions, like what to wear or what to say in conversations. Mark had succeeded in making her dependent on him for validation and guidance. By the time she realized what was happening, her self-trust had eroded to the point where she was unsure of her own thoughts and emotions. The psychological consequences of long-term manipulation. Prolonged exposure to manipulation can cause severe emotional and cognitive impairments that take years to recover from. The victim's reality becomes distorted, and their ability to make decisions, trust themselves, or engage in meaningful relationships is severely compromised. Below are some of the most common psychological consequences of long-term manipulation. 1. Chronic self-doubt and confusion. One of the most significant outcomes of manipulation is chronic self-doubt. Manipulators deliberately distort reality, and over time, this creates a deep sense of confusion in the victim's mind. Even after leaving the manipulative relationship, victims may continue to struggle with making decisions, questioning their judgment, and wondering if they are always wrong. This lack of confidence can manifest in every aspect of life, from personal relationships to professional decisions. Scientific insight. Studies on gaslighting victims have shown a decline in cognitive trust, making them more susceptible to future manipulation. Stern, 2018. This research suggests that the longer a person is subjected to manipulation, the more difficult it becomes for them to trust their own thoughts and perceptions. 2. Anxiety and hypervigilance. Another common psychological consequence of manipulation is anxiety, especially in the form of hypervigilance. Victims of manipulation often develop a heightened sense of anxiety, always anticipating criticism, judgment, or emotional abuse. This constant state of alertness means they are constantly on edge, scanning for any signs of danger or manipulation. The fear of being gaslighted or invalidated becomes a persistent, low-grade anxiety that never seems to go away, even after the manipulative person is no longer in their life. Example: Jake, who had been in a long-term manipulative relationship, found himself overanalyzing text messages from friends and co-workers, fearing hidden criticism or disapproval. His anxiety became so overwhelming that he started questioning even the smallest interactions, constantly fearing that he was being deceived or misunderstood. 3. Emotional numbness and depression. For many victims of manipulation, emotional numbness is a coping mechanism. The constant emotional turmoil and invalidation lead to a state of emotional exhaustion, where the victim no longer feels able to process or express their feelings. This emotional suppression can lead to dissociation, where the victim feels detached from themselves, their surroundings, and their relationships. Over time, this emotional numbness can develop into a deep depression, as the victim feels completely disconnected from their sense of self and from others. Scientific insight. Psychological research has linked prolonged emotional suppression to an increased risk of major depressive disorder, Gross and John, 2003. The inability to express or process emotions can create a sense of isolation and hopelessness, which often manifests as depression. 4. Low self-worth and identity loss. Perhaps the most devastating psychological consequence of long-term manipulation is the loss of self-worth and identity. Constant belittling, blame shifting, and gaslighting can make victims feel as though they are worthless, unworthy of love, or incapable of making good decisions. Over time, victims begin to internalize the manipulator's distorted perception of them and lose sight of their true identity. This results in a deep sense of confusion about who they are, what they value, and what they want from life. Example: Lisa, once a confident and ambitious artist, found herself in a relationship with a manipulative partner who dismissed her passion for art as childish and immature. Over the years, she began to question her talent and worth, ultimately abandoning her creative pursuits and giving up on her dreams. She became convinced that she wasn't good enough to follow her passion, which left her feeling empty and disillusioned. The cycle of manipulation, why victims stay. One of the most perplexing aspects of manipulation is why victims stay in these toxic relationships despite the harm they are enduring. Understanding the psychological traps that keep victims bound to manipulators is crucial for breaking free from the cycle of abuse. Here are some of the most common reasons why victims remain in manipulative relationships. 1. The trauma bond. The trauma bond is a psychological phenomenon that occurs when repeated cycles of affection and cruelty create an emotional dependency on the manipulator. The victim feels addicted to the emotional highs and lows of the relationship, even though it's destructive. The intermittent reinforcement of kindness and affection creates confusion and dependency, making it difficult for the victim to leave. The bond feels like an attachment, even though it is based on manipulation and emotional abuse. 2. Fear of abandonment. Manipulators often instill the fear of abandonment in their victims, making them believe that they will be unloved or unworthy if they leave. This fear of being alone and unlovable is powerful and can prevent victims from leaving even the most abusive or toxic situations. The manipulator may feed into this fear by making threats of abandonment or by telling the victim that they are the only one who truly cares about them. 3. Gaslighting-induced dependence. Gaslighting is designed to make victims dependent on the manipulator for validation and a sense of reality. After prolonged exposure to gaslighting, victims may no longer trust their own perceptions or judgment, leaving them relying on the manipulator for guidance and confirmation of their reality. This dependency can create an emotional bond that is incredibly difficult to break, even if the manipulator is causing significant harm. Breaking free, rebuilding psychological strength, recovery from manipulation is possible, but it requires conscious effort and dedication. Victims must actively work to rebuild their psychological strength, restore their self-trust, and regain their sense of identity. Below are some steps that can help victims begin their journey toward healing. 1. Reaffirm personal truths. The first step in healing is to challenge the distorted beliefs that the manipulator has imposed. Victims should actively work to reconnect with the beliefs they once held about themselves and identify which ones were influenced by the manipulator. This can be a difficult process, but it is essential for regaining self-trust. Exercise. Write down the things you once believed about yourself before the manipulation began and compare them to the beliefs you have now. Identify which beliefs were influenced by the manipulator and work to challenge and replace them with healthier, more accurate beliefs about yourself. 2. Reestablish decision-making confidence. Victims should start by making small decisions independently, without seeking validation from others. Recognizing that making mistakes is part of growth can help restore confidence in one's judgment. Over time, these small decisions will add up and help rebuild a sense of personal autonomy. Example: Sarah, a former victim of gaslighting, started making daily decisions on her own, whether it was choosing what to eat, what to wear, or what to do for fun. With each decision she made, her confidence grew, and she slowly regained trust in her own ability to make choices. 3. Reconnect with supportive relationships. Victims must reach out to trusted friends, family members, or support groups that can validate their experiences and reinforce their self-worth. Supportive relationships help victims rebuild their sense of reality and provide the emotional nourishment necessary for healing. Scientific insight. Research has shown that social support can significantly reduce the long-term effects of emotional abuse. Cohen and Wills, 1985. Having a network of people who believe in you and validate your feelings is essential for emotional recovery. 4. Therapeutic healing. Therapy can be a crucial part of recovery for those who have suffered from manipulation. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is particularly effective for victims of manipulation because it helps challenge distorted thinking patterns and rebuild a sense of autonomy. Example: Tom, a survivor of workplace gaslighting, used CBT techniques to challenge his self-doubt and rebuild confidence in his professional abilities. Through therapy, he was able to gain a clearer sense of his strengths and accomplishments, which helped him regain a sense of control in his life. Conclusion: manipulation does more than distort reality. It breaks down a person's entire sense of self. The psychological toll is heavy, but recovery is possible. Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more, and don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share your thoughts with us. We're in this journey together.